This, ladies and gentlemen, is Community Radio Networks. It is the 30th of July today, wishing you all a lovely Tuesday. Let's get you all the information that you need to take on the day today. And we will start with the world news coming up for you first. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news read by Shabnam Madgil. Talks are ongoing with world leaders to ward off dangers following a deadly strike that killed 12 youth in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Diplomats race to contain escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. Lebanese foreign minister saying a flurry of diplomatic activity is sought to contain the anticipated Israeli response. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed a severe response to a strike that killed these youth in the annexed Golan Heights as diplomats race to contain escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. Thousands of Palestinians returned to their homes in the ruins of Gaza's main southern city, Khan Yunis, after Israeli forces ended a week-long incursion there, which they said aimed to prevent Hamas from regrouping. Voices in Israel have grown, expressing rejection to Israeli officials' acts that tolerate and back violence and riots committed by far-right extremist activists, considering these acts as defying Israeli legal systems. Any possible Israeli attack on Lebanon will have serious consequences for Israel, according to Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian in a phone call with French counterpart Emmanuel Macron. Israeli authorities blamed Iran-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah for a rocket attack that hit a football ground in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, killing 12 children and teenagers, and vowed to inflict a heavy response. The U.S. Embassy in Lebanon posted a video warning Americans to leave the country while they can, as Israel is preparing to retaliate against Lebanon-based Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorists for a rocket attack over the weekend. Discrimination and attacks against Muslims and Palestinians have risen by about 70% in the United States in the first half of this year, amid heightened Islamophobia due to Israel's offensive in Gaza. President Biden has officially announced his plan to overhaul the United States Supreme Court, sharing his proposed agenda in an op-ed published in the Washington Post yesterday. He discussed the changes he would like to see the court go through, as he says it is mired in a crisis of ethics. And among the changes that he would like to impose on the court include term limits for justices and a binding code of conduct. He called for major Supreme Court reforms in this speech marking the anniversary of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. His proposals, a constitutional amendment stripping the president of immunity for crimes committed while in office, term limits for Supreme Court justices, and a binding code of conduct for the High Court, stand little chance of going anywhere with a divided Congress. Vice President Kamala Harris endorsed his call for reform, saying the changes would restore confidence in the court and strengthen our democracy. President Biden proposing the set of changes, a departure from the current lifetime tenure, also capping each justice's term to 18 years, reducing the chances of a single president shaping the country's highest court. Former President Trump is planning to attend the National Association of Black Journalists annual convention in Chicago tomorrow, and he has agreed to be interviewed by the FBI as part of its probe into his attempted assassination earlier this month. The members of a local SWAT team at the scene the day former President Trump was shot spoke out for the first time, citing communication failures with the Secret Service, but acknowledging that we all failed that day. While former President Trump may hold an overall lead on Vice President Kamala Harris, a new poll has found that the pressured Democratic nominee is further ahead with younger Americans, finding that a head-to-head matchup among voters ages 18 to 34. Harris leads Trump 60% to 40%. She also has gained significant ground on former President Trump in the election betting markets in the week since taking over at the top of the Democratic ticket. He entered with a 54.6% chance to win the election on Sunday. She came in with 39.2%, And while the market still favors him, the 15-point gap represents a significant shift over the last week. And the days before President Biden announced his decision to drop out of the race, Trump had a 61% chance to win the election. It is celebrities, including Jeff Bridges, Mark Hamill, and J.J. Abrams, and politicians helped raise over $3.7 million for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign during a White Dudes for Harris Zoom call yesterday. The fundraiser lasted more than 3 hours, with organizers reporting an audience of 180,000. It was the male equivalent of a White Women Answer the Call Zoom event that saw more than 160,000 women support her last week. And Vice President Kamala Harris highlighted endorsements from mayors of border towns in swing state Arizona as she looks to blunt the impact of Republican criticism of her handling of illegal border crossings. Democrats are eagerly waiting to see whom she picks as her running mate, as a few contenders appear to be rising to the forefront. Polling and extensive research is underway for Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg are also seen as prospective running mates. North Carolina's Governor Roy Cooper yesterday took himself out of consideration in a sign that the accelerated search has entered a new phase. He said he withdrew from consideration due to concerns about his Republican lieutenant governor assuming control when he travels out of state if selected. He was seen as having the potential to flip a swing state Democrats have won in 16 years. Health's blood test called SHIELD to screen for colon cancer. This test isn't meant to replace colonoscopies, but is generating enthusiasm among doctors who say it has the potential to boost the dismal rate of screenings for the second highest cause of cancer death in the United States. SHIELD has previously been available to doctors as a screening tool at an out-of-pocket cost of $895. With the FDA approval, Medicare and private insurance companies are much more likely to cover this cost of the blood test, making it more widely accessible for patients. The National Hurricane Center is tracking the Atlantic system that it says has a 50% chance of becoming the season's next tropical depression or storm, with a potential path that could bring it to Florida. If the system were to gain enough strength, it would receive the name Tropical Storm Debbie. And the National Hurricane Center has increased the chances of a tropical wave to strengthen as it moves from Florida towards Florida and the United States. Wildfire season is in full swing, with more than 100 blazes turning across the United States. And the Park Fire continues to burn across North Carolina, becoming the 6th largest wildfire in the state's history and the largest active blaze in the U.S. It has burned 373,000 acres and is 14% contained. There have been confirmed over 100 buildings that have been destroyed, but no reported fatalities. So many earthquakes have struck the West Texas county of Scurry in the past week, more than 100 at last count. Scurry's a county judge wrote that this declaration of disaster has been announced, and it registered magnitude 4.9 was the highest felt on the 22nd of this month. For the first time in 16 years, the U.S. men's gymnastics team has won an Olympic medal, buoyed by a resurgent performance from the national champion Brody Malone, who competed in 5 of the 6 events. Team USA held off Great Britain and Ukraine to win bronze at the 2024 Olympics, Japan surging to gold in the final rotation, while China took silver. The U.S. men's gymnastics team, including Frederick Richard, Asher Hong, Paul Judah, Brody Malone, and Stephen Nedrick, securing their first Olympic medal in the team. The men's triathlon event has been postponed until tomorrow due to poor water quality levels in the River Seine. Pollution in the Seine typically jumps after heavy rains like those that recently drenched the French capital. About $1.5 billion was spent trying to clean the river ahead of the Games, and Paris officials have made a big show of displaying its suitability. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo swam in the river earlier this month to display her confidence of the water quality. And the men's individual triathlon now postponed, though, due to the quality of the water in the Seine. A 19-year-old about to make her debut at the 2016 Olympics, knew she would make history in front of a global audience. Not only was she one half of Egypt's first female beach volleyball team to compete at the Games alongside teammate Nada Mewad, but that opening encounter on Rio de Janeiro's famous Copacabana beach also made the first player to take the court in long pants, sleeves, and a hijab headscarf, all reflecting her Muslim faith. British swimmer Adam Peaty has tested positive for COVID, and Team Great Britain said a day after he narrowly missed out on the 100 meters breaststroke gold that he shared the silver with the American Nick Fink after both finished 0.02 seconds behind Italy's Niccolò Martinenghi. Officers have responded just before noon today to reports of a stabbing at a property on Hart Street in Southport, a seaside town about 20 miles north of Liverpool. 2 girls aged 6 and 17 were killed, and now we have a report of a third one who was hurt dying. There were 9 children injured in this attack in this seaside town. A third child reported this actually just a little while ago. 9-year-old child died in the hospital, one of the 6 wounded children who had been in critical condition, along with 2 adults who were also stabbed. A 17-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder at this attack at a Taylor Swift-themed event at a dance school in the United Kingdom. A stabbing attack in northern England has killed the 3 people, most of them children. Took place at the Taylor Swift-themed dance class for kids ages 6 to 11 in Southport. The Taylor Swift has expressed her shock and sorrow over this stabbing incident in England's Southport. She said she was completely in shock after these 3 children were killed in this stabbing incident. Police investigating the deadly attack, and the horror of the attack was washing over me continuously, she said in a post on her Instagram account. Protests erupted across Venezuela after strongman Nicolas Maduro claimed victory in the country's presidential election. The opposition has disputed this declaration of victory as fraudulent, saying its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won convincingly with 73.2% of the votes. The U.S. is among regional leaders, including Peru and Chile, that have raised questions about the validity of the results. Security forces in Venezuela have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at people protesting the disputed election results. And in some areas, posters of President Maduro were ripped down and burned, while tires, cars, and rubbish were also set alight. The Interpol says more than 200 people have been arrested and some $1.6 billion worth of illegal drugs and precursor chemicals seized as part of a 2-month operation against narcotics trafficking across Europe, North America, and Africa. The international police organization based in Lyon in France said Operation Lionfish Hurricane led to the seizure of 615 tons of illegal drugs and chemicals. The Afghan Taliban government has severed consular ties with swaths of its embassies in Western countries, said Kabul, cutting off diplomats loyal to the former US-backed regime. The Taliban takeover left diplomats staffing Afghanistan's foreign missions in limbo, having pledged to serve a government which collapsed in chaos after the withdrawal of the United States troops. And Afghanistan's foreign ministry said today it now bears no responsibility for the passports and visas issued by missions out of step with Kabul's new rulers. The embassies include those in the cities of London and Berlin, as well as the countries of Belgium, Switzerland, Norway, Canada, and Australia. The statement said Afghans living abroad should deal instead with missions affiliated with the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, the self-styled name the Taliban have given the country under their rule. Pakistan, China, and Russia are among the Afghan embassies working on orders from the Taliban government. The Biden administration announced a new lethal aid package for Ukraine, totaling about $1.7 billion and largely consisting of missiles and ammunitions for missile, artillery, and air defense systems. The Biden administration also says it has replenished the 180 million barrels of oil it withdrew from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve in response to high prices following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russian troops have made significant gains in eastern Ukraine, exploiting Kyiv's manpower shortages. And a commander of the Russian mercenary group has been killed in Mali following an attack by rebel fighters during a sandstorm. The military regime in the West African state had turned to the notorious Wagner group seeking support in fighting jihadist and separatist forces. And dozens of Wagner mercenaries were killed by jihadis and rebels over the weekend in northern Mali in what one analyst described as the largest battleground blow to the shadowy Russian group in years. A diplomatic spat has erupted between Poland and Hungary that lays bare the deep tensions within Europe over how to deal with Russia when it's waging war on Ukraine. Poland, like Germany, France, and most other European nations, is a staunch ally of Ukraine, while Hungary's populist Prime Minister Viktor Orban is widely considered to have the warmest relations with the Kremlin among all European Union leaders. Russia's Navy Day saw warships from India and China join the celebrations as President Putin sought to project the strength of his anti-Western alliance. China sent its destroyer, and India sent the Tabar, a stealth frigate, to the naval parade in St. Petersburg yesterday. The foreign ministers of the US, Japan, Australia, and India expressed serious concerns over the situation in the South China Sea in a veiled rebuke to Beijing. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his counterparts in the so-called Quad grouping issued a joint statement calling for a free and open Pacific after talks in Tokyo. The statement did not name China directly, but referred to a series of recent confrontations between Chinese and Philippine vessels in the disputed South China Sea. And the group also condemned North Korea's destabilizing missile launches. The Quad talks in Tokyo, the first since September, included Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa, India's S. Jayashankar, and Australia's top diplomat Penny Wong. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. Taiwan reached an agreement with China today over the deaths of 2 Chinese fishermen in a maritime incident following months of negotiations, a move that could tone down tensions in the sensitive Taiwan Strait. And new intelligence indicates North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's daughter, Kim Joo-ae, is secretly undergoing succession training to prime her for taking control of the secretive country. She's believed to be 10 to 12 years old and is the second child of the North Korean leader. There is historical precedent for him to identify a successor so early on because that's what his father, Kim Jong-il, did with him. The Kim family's rule in North Korea stretches back to 1948 when Kim Il-sung came to power in the aftermath of World War II. Bangladesh observed a day of mourning today in memory of more than 200 people killed in recent weeks during violence that evolved from student protests over the South Asian country's quota system for government jobs. After weeks of peaceful protests by students looking to change the system, which reserved 30% of government jobs for relatives of veterans and those who were raped during the War of Independence against Pakistan in 1971. Then violence erupted on the 15th of this month when activists of a student wing of the ruling party attacked demonstrations. The quota protests pose the most serious challenge to Bangladesh's government's since Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina won a 4th consecutive term in the January elections that the main opposition groups boycotted. The ruling Awami League Party and opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party have often accused each other of fueling political chaos and violence. The students held scattered street protests yesterday also after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government ignored an ultimatum to release their leaders and apologize for those killed in deadly unrest. Prime Minister Modi has lauded the skills and teamwork of Manu Bhaker and Sarabjot Singh after the duo secured India's 2nd medal at the Paris Olympics yesterday. Both beat their Korean counterparts in the 10-meter air pistol mixed event. And it turned out to be a one-sided affair as Manu Bhaker clinched a 2nd Olympic bronze to double India's Summer Games 2024 tally on day 4 in Paris. She was partnering with Sarabjot Singh in this air pistol mixed team event. And we have the first Indian woman shooter to win the Olympic medal, ending a 12-year wait for the shooting contingent, barely smiling and waving at the few chanting her name at the shooting arena in Châteauroux in France. And 48 hours later, she achieved something bigger, becoming independent India's first athlete to win 2 medals at the same Olympics after winning bronze, her second at the Games, in this 10-meter air pistol mixed team event with partner Sarabjot Singh. On the hockey field, India will face Ireland in a Pool B encounter. Having held Argentina to a 1-1 draw, the team will be eager to secure 3 points. Archery, which has been a source of disappointment in the team events, offers a fresh start in the individual category. And dozens of people have died and hundreds more are feared trapped after heavy rainfall led to major landslides in the hills of Kerala. Rescue operations are hindered by bad weather, collapsed bridges and blocked roads, with helicopters and the Indian Army assisting in search and rescue efforts. The Indian Meteorological Department has forecast extremely heavy rain to continue through today. Kerala's Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan confirmed in a press conference that 93 bodies have been recovered so far after multiple landslides triggered by heavy monsoon rain in the Wayanad district. The Kerala government announced that 2 days, today and tomorrow, will be observed as state mourning, and all state government programs have been deferred. Multiple landslides triggered by pounding monsoon rains have killed many, with hundreds more feared trapped under the mud and debris in Kerala's hill district of Wayanad. The Indian Army roping in a temporary bridge that linked the affected area to a nearest town that was also destroyed. Prime Minister Modi spoke to Kerala's Chief Minister and assured all possible help from the center. This devastating landslides in Wayanad district, in which these people have died, underscores the urgent need for immediate micro-level mapping of landslide hazard zones throughout the state. Landslides in southern India have killed these people and continue to do that whenever the monsoon season arrives every year. 2 National Disaster Response Force teams, as many columns of the Army and Indian Air Force involved in rescue operations out there. The Lok Sabha was in uproar today after BJP MP Anurag Thakur took a veiled jibe at Congress and Rahul Gandhi over the issues of caste census. The one whose caste is not known is talking about the census, he said. The caste remark led to an uproar in the House, with Rahul Gandhi interrupting his speech and saying, "You can insult me as much as you want, but you should not forget that we will get the caste census bill passed in Parliament." Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann launched a scathing attack on the BJP-led central government, accusing it of imprisoning Aam Aadmi Party leaders who have made significant improvement in Delhi's education and health sectors. He condemned the arrests of Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, his former deputy Manish Sisodia and ex-minister Satyendra Jain, terming them politically motivated. In recent weeks, the Khasi Students' Union, a powerful civil society organization in Meghalaya, has been agitating to demand the extension of the inner line permit regime to the state. There have also been several reported cases of assault on non-local migrant workers by members of the Khasi Students' Union, who recently claimed to have expelled some 2,500 of them from Meghalaya for allegedly working without valid papers. Tribal clashes have been ongoing for the past 7 days in different areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Kurram district, claiming 49 lives and leaving more than 200 people injured, have come to a halt now, according to the Deputy Commissioner. The district administration said armed clashes between Boshehra and Malikal tribesmen had begun on the 24th of this month. Jamaat-e-Islami chief Nemur Rahman said the sit-in organized at Liaquat Bagh in Rawalpindi was the first phase of their movement, as after the acceptance of their demands regarding inflation and inflated power bills, the religio-political party would commence the second phase, which would focus on changing the system. At least 2 people in custody and around 1,500 have been booked after the government swung into action against members of the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan for inciting violence against the country's top judge, as more instances of hate speech by members of the party surfaced. The Supreme Court in Islamabad referred journalist Arshad Sharif's murder case back to the 3-judge committee constituted under the Supreme Court Practice and Procedure Act to refix it before a 5-judge bench. And imminent rains across Pakistan may cause flash floods and urban flooding in many parts of the country, according to the National Disaster Management Authority. Monsoon currents from the Bay of Bengal are expected to enter the central and southern parts, which may bring heavy rainfall in the catchment areas of the country's river systems. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you, but I do have your financial news coming up in just a minute. In the financial news that you need to know for today, and today is Tuesday, the 30th of July. America's gross national debt has topped 35 trillion for the first time, a reminder of the nation's grim fiscal predicament as legislative fights over taxes and spending initiatives loom in Washington. The Treasury Department noted this milestone in its daily report detailing the nation's balance sheet. The red ink is mounting in the U.S. more quickly than many economists had predicted, as the costs of federal programs enacted in recent years have exceeded initial projections. U.S. stocks nudged higher ahead of the bell this morning as investors awaited a flood of key earnings from the likes of Microsoft and the start of the Federal Reserve's rate-setting policy meeting. Futures on the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq were up roughly 0.2% on the heels of a lackluster session for the major gauges. Futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average hovered above the flat line. Oil fell to the lowest in 7 weeks on doubts about the strength of global demand, while investors looked ahead at OPEC's meeting for guidance on supplies. The Senate is expected to pass legislation today that is designed to protect children from dangerous online content, pushing forward with what would be the first major effort by Congress in decades to hold tech companies more accountable for the harm that they cause. Microsoft reporting its fiscal fourth quarter earnings after the bell today, as Wall Street continues to look for signs that the massive wave of AI investment among big tech firms is starting to payoff. Elon Musk has repeatedly accused Google of being biased against former President Trump in a series of X posts. He has endorsed Trump and other influential conservative critics, primarily focused on Google's autocomplete feature, which provides suggestions based on what you've typed into the search bar. Apple shares are trending higher following TD Cowen's decision to raise its price target to $250 from $220 on the stock, and his managing director and senior research analyst Krish Shankar discussed this ahead of Apple's second quarter earnings report that is due on Thursday. Apple has just released the developer betas for iOS 18.1, iPad OS 18.1, and Mac OS Sequoia 15.1, giving users access to the company's first set of AI features. Chip giant AMD is set to report its second quarter earnings after the bell today, as Wall Street looks to see if AI infrastructure spending is continuing its upward trajectory. PayPal today raised its forecast for full-year adjusted profit for the second time, betting on resilient consumer spending on the back-to-school and upcoming holiday shopping seasons while cost-cutting measures improved margins. Pfizer, which is dealing with a sharp revenue drop from COVID products, raised its annual profit forecast today, helped by the addition of new cancer treatments from its $43 billion deal for Seagen and strong sales of its heart disease drug. Shares of CrowdStrike fell more than 4% in pre-market trading today after a report Delta Airlines will seek compensation from the cybersecurity firm over the recent global IT outage that crippled industries, including airlines. And this cyber outage led to more than 2,200 flight cancellations on the 19th of this month, and Delta has canceled over 6,000 flights so far since then. Merck & Company beat second quarter results on strong growth in Keytruda, its blockbuster cancer immunotherapy and the world's best-selling prescription medicine. New Jersey-based Merck also slightly raised its full-year sales projections, joining big pharmaceutical companies such as Roche, Johnson & Johnson, and Bristol-Myers Squibb that lifted their forecast when they reported earnings earlier this month. Procter & Gamble has missed Wall Street expectations for fourth quarter sales today on weak demand for its skincare products in major market China, and waning price benefits in the US and Europe for its home care products. Shares of the Tide detergent maker have fallen 2.3% in pre-market trading today. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold more Bank of America shares, boosting sales to more than $3 billion this month, taking profits after a big run-up in the second largest U.S. bank's stock price. He sold 18.4 million of the bank's shares for $767 million between the 25th and 29th of this month. After Adidas faced backlash from pro-Israel groups for featuring Bella Hadid in a campaign referencing the 1972 Munich Olympics without acknowledging the 11 Israelis killed by the Palestinian group Black September at the same event, the model has come out with a statement of her own. Hadid was featured wearing shoes inspired by the Adidas L72 sneakers, which debuted in the 1972 Munich Olympics. In a lengthy Instagram story yesterday, she said she would never knowingly engage in a work linked to a horrific tragedy. A United Airlines flight from Houston to Boston was forced to make an emergency landing in Washington, D.C. after a passenger-involved biohazard incident left crew members vomiting. Records show Flight 2477 departed from George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston and was diverted to Dulles International Airport in Northern Virginia. And while the United's website described the reason as an urgent customer situation, it is actually a biohazard incident where all the passengers were vomiting. The plane was carrying 155 passengers and 6 crew members. Dolly Parton's theme park was a bucket list item for Zoe Ballesteros. So when the California resident started planning a trip to Philadelphia to see Arsenal play this week, she added a stop in Tennessee to check Dollywood off her list. Instead of soaking up the energy, amusement park, food, rides, and shows the famous country singer's theme park and resort has to offer, Ballesteros' short-lived 2-hour visit ending with her soaked in murky floodwaters from a torrential downpour, Mother Nature instead decided to deliver to the Pigeon Forge in Tennessee, where Dollywood is located. A flash flood warning was issued for the area. Mass market retailers in the U.S. are plying shoppers with offers for computers, clothes, and other back-to-school essentials at affordable prices. To seal the deal, they are making buy now, pay later deals as a way for customers to spread out the cost of going back to class in style. Soon, Old Glory will have to be born in the land of the free and not merely flying over it. Congress has passed a proposal to require the federal government to purchase only American flags that have been completely manufactured in the U.S. The U.S. imports millions of American flags from overseas, mostly from China, and the sponsors of the proposal said it's time for American flags to originate in the country that they represent. If you would rather be setting your own schedule and assigning yourself tasks throughout the workday, you aren't alone, as a Gallup survey has found that 6 out of 10 Americans want to be their own boss. Dallas County has broken ground on an emergency operations center near Highway 183 in Mockingbird. The $40 million project will cover 37,000 square feet. And contractors for the city of Dallas will get a pay raise to keep up with inflation. Dallas has a policy in place that companies that get contracts to provide services for the city, like landscaping or janitorial, and they have to pay their employees a living wage. UN member states met yesterday seeking to finalize an international treaty on the fight against cybercrime, a text strongly opposed by an unlikely alliance of human rights groups and big technology companies. The UN Convention Against Cybercrime originated in 2017 when Russian diplomats sent the world body's Secretary General a letter outlining the initiative. The International Monetary Fund has approved a bailout of $3.4 billion for Ethiopia to support its economic reforms over the next 4 years. The Horn of Africa nation has been struggling with chronic foreign currency shortage and high inflation, largely blamed on the brutal 2-year civil war in Tigray, which ended in 2022. Earlier this year, Honda and Nissan signed a memorandum of understanding to begin weighing a partnership. The potential collaboration between the two large Japanese automakers is expected to focus on electric vehicles and automotive software platforms. And now Mitsubishi, which is 34% owned by Nissan, looks set to also get it on the deal. Education technology company Baiju is close to settling a $19 million payment dispute with the Indian Cricket Board, which could free the business from an insolvency process that has frozen the assets of what was once India's biggest startup. An Indian tribunal this month initiated insolvency proceedings against Baiju after the Board of Control for Cricket in India complained about its failure to recover sponsorship payments from the company, dealing another blow to the business founded by CEO Baiju Ravindran, who had soared from teacher to startup a billionaire. Valued at $22 billion in 2022, Baiju has suffered numerous setbacks in recent years, including boardroom exits and a tussle with investors who accused him of corporate governance lapses. It has also had to shed jobs and has suffered a collapse in its valuation to less than $3 billion. We have more financial news from India, where the Sensex ended 99.56 points higher at the closing bell, while the NSE Nifty 50 gained 21.20 points. The BCCI confirming its settlement with Baiju, as we mentioned, and meanwhile, we do have Prime Minister Modi saying that India is the only nation that is witnessing high growth occupied with low inflation, as he spoke in Parliament today. Akim's Drugs and Pharmaceuticals IPO will close for subscription on the 1st of this month, which is just 2 days away. And the Trade and Commerce Wing of the Indian Embassy in China has issued an update trade advisory in the interest of Indian companies doing business with Chinese entities in the country. Kishore Bayani's Future Retail for liquidation by a law tribunal, as Future Retail carries liabilities exceeding over 28,000 crore rupees. And railway stocks, including IRFC, and RITES, have registered strong gains over the past few sessions. And AI is not causing any job losses, according to Labour Minister Mansukh Mandavia. Gold prices have dipped today, and we also have the Ola Electric IPO, that is also the biggest this year until now, looking to raise 6,145 crore rupees. Following an announcement, NBC's stock has surged by as much as 8.1% to reach a day's high of 188 rupees. Tomatoes are going to be sold at subsidized rates of 60 kilograms in Delhi, NCR. This is a part of an initiative in various places across Delhi, NCR. Indian Oil's first quarter profit has tanked 81%, and we also have Tata Consumers' first quarter cons pat falling 8%, and 12 multi-baggers mutual funds are in the fray right now as India keeps global funds at bay with the bond curbs. Adani Wilmar is to invest 600 crore rupees to expand its edible oil business and solar power capacities. Hindustan Zinc gets a tax demand of 1,170 crore rupees from the Income Tax Department's National Faceless Assessment Center. And TRAI, the telecom regulator, has withdrawn a recommendation exempting telcos from paying license fee and spectrum charges. India's Hindustan Petroleum Corporation seeking an LNG import deal. And India's largest CHRO residential meet, Ether World Annual Conclave, is back and will take place from the 4th to the 6th of September. We have edible oil volume growth expected to stabilize at 8 to 10%, and the market confidence is strong and no immediate worries for any corporate earnings. Battle lines are being drawn in India's cement space as Gautam Adani's expansion spree sets off a race with fellow billionaire Kumaramangalam Birla's Ultratech Cement Limited to build capacity and snap up assets. The clash of titans likely to intensify as the deep-pocketed tycoons seek to dominate supplies of a building material that is critical to sustaining India's infrastructure boom. Prime Minister Modi addressed the Journey Towards Viksit Bharat, a post-union budget conference highlighting India's 8% growth rate and significant increase in budget allocations for railways, highways, agriculture, and defense. While he was addressing the session, he said India is growing at the speed of 8%. Prime Minister Modi also said the change is not just of the sentiments, but of confidence. During the pandemic, we used to have discussions, and the center point of those discussions used to be getting growth back. I said then that India will run on the path of development very soon, and today India is growing at the speed of 8%. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman answered the questions raised by the opposition India bloc in the Lok Sabha, and the Finance Minister said this budget seeks to consolidate the earlier accomplishments and outline measures to overcome challenges, and thanked Prime Minister Modi for his faith in her. She fended off the opposition's allegations of the government announcing policies only for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, and we do have also her saying that because all states are not named in the union budget speeches, it did not mean that all states weren't provided resources by the government. Charged the affairs of Indonesia to Pakistan, Rehmat Kusuma has said that the current annual trade of $45 million between the two countries is much less than its potential, which needs to be further increased. He was speaking at the press club in Quetta, and that happened last evening. The country witnessed the highest ever outflow of profit and dividends by foreign investors in financial year 24, as the State Bank of Pakistan had to clear the backlog under pressure from the International Monetary Fund, China, and others. The Federal Board of Revenue has released specifics for the collection of tax on the earnings of builders and real estate developers, as well as details for collecting income tax from other sources as legislated in the 24-25 budget. Businessmen not happy with the 100 basis points interest rate cut announced by the State Bank, saying they were expecting a substantial reduction of 300 to 500 BPS for the revival of economic activities. Provincial Energy Minister Syed Nasir Hussain Shah announced that electricity prices in the province would be significantly reduced once the Sindh Electric Power Regulatory Authority becomes operational next month. And Waves Home Appliances has received a foreign player's intention to form a strategic Alliance. The company said it had initiated discussions to develop a comprehensive business model that covers, among other things, the provision of technical know-how, engineering personnel, and the use of the company's brand name in domestic and export markets, management structure sharing, and the amount of investment to be brought in this news out of Karachi. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news for you. I do have the final segment of our program coming up for you in just a minute. All right, let's start this final segment of our program on this lovely Tuesday morning. It is the 30th of July today. And with some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, it was in Jamestown, Virginia, that the first selected legislative assembly in the New World, the House of Burgesses, convenes in the choir of the town's church. Happened on today's date in the year 1619. The London Company, which had established Jamestown settlement 12 years before, directed Virginia's as governor to summon a General Assembly elected by the settlers with every free adult male voting. 22 representatives from the 11 Jamestown boroughs were chosen, and it was the first legislative assembly in America that convened on today's date in 1619. And then in 1777, Brigadier General George Clinton takes office as the first elected governor of the independent state of New York. He would go on to become New York's longest-serving governor, as well as the longest-serving governor in the United States. And that, ladies and gentlemen, happened also on today's date in the year 1777. On the 30th of July in 1866, during the turbulent Reconstruction era after the Civil War, white resistance to African American citizenship turns violent in New Orleans when a white mob kills dozens of African Americans gathering to support a political meeting. On the 30th of July in 1866, the New Orleans Massacre, also called the New Orleans Riot, happened at the New Orleans Mechanics Institute, where 25 state delegates were reconvening the Louisiana Constitutional Convention. And this new constitution already had abolished slavery, but the state legislature passed laws limiting the rights of people freed from slavery. The New Orleans Massacre, or the New Orleans Riot, took place on the 30th of July in 1866. On the 30th of July 1945, the USS Indianapolis is torpedoed by a Japanese submarine and sinks within minutes in shark-infested waters. Only 316 of the 1,196 men on board survived. However, the Indianapolis had already completed its major mission, the delivery of key components of the atomic bomb that would be dropped a week later at Hiroshima to the Tinian Island in the South Pacific. It made that delivery to the island on 4 days earlier, on the 26th of July. The mission was top secret, and the ship's crew was unaware of its cargo. And the Indianapolis, after leaving the island, sailed to the U.S. military's Pacific headquarters at Guam and was given orders to meet the battleship ISS Idaho at Leyte Gulf in the Philippines to prepare for the invasion of Japan. And then you all do know that it was the following month, on the 6th of August, that the U.S. dropped that atomic bomb on Hiroshima, inflicting nearly 130,000 casualties and destroying more than 60% of the city. And on the 9th of August, a second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, where casualties were estimated at over 66,000. So it was all that they needed to drop these bombs that made its delivery on the Indianapolis to the Tinian Island, and right after it was to sail away, the Indianapolis was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine. On the 30th of July 1956, 2 years after pushing to have the phrase "under God" inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance, President Eisenhower signs a law officially declaring "In God We Trust" to be the nation's official motto. The law, PL 84-140, also mandated that the phrase be printed on all American paper currency. The phrase had been placed on U.S. coins since the Civil War, when, according to the Historical Association of the U.S. Treasury, religious sentiment reached a peak. Eisenhower's Treasury Secretary George Humphrey had suggested adding the phrase to paper currency as well. And although some historical accounts claim that Eisenhower was raised a Jehovah's Witness, most presidential scholars now believe his family was Mennonite. Either way, he abandoned his family's religion before entering the army and took the unusual step of being baptized relatively late in his adult life as a Presbyterian. The baptism took place barely a year into his first term as president, and he signed "In God We Trust" into law on the 30th of July in 1956. And in 1965, on today's date, President Lyndon B. Johnson signs Medicare, a healthcare insurance program for elderly Americans, into law. At the bill signing ceremony, which took place at the Truman Library in Independence, Missouri, former President Truman was enrolled as Medicare's first beneficiary and received the first Medicare card. He wanted to recognize Truman, who in 1945 had become the first president to propose national health insurance, an initiative that was opposed at the time by Congress. So Medicare was signed into law on today's date in 1965. In 1966, the three-chord masterpiece called Wild Thing becomes a number one hit for the Trogs, instantly earning a place in the rock and roll canon. There were many other hits for the Trogs, including With a Girl Like You and Love Is All Around, but nothing to match this one that you're listening to, Wild Thing, in terms of success or influence. A mid-air collision between a Boeing 727 and a fighter jet in Japan kills 162 people on the 30th of July 1971. This military plane was flying without radar. All Nippon Airways Flight 58 was traveling from Chitose Airport to Hokkaido to Tokyo, filled largely with members of a group dedicated to the assistance of war victims. Takeoff was uneventful and the plane soon reached 28,000 feet. Cruising over the Japanese Alps, the flight suddenly encountered two military jets. One of the Japanese Sabre jets was piloted by Captain Kuma, and the other was being flown by his student. And they had only a few hours of flying experience, and neither jet was equipped with radar, which would have indicated the presence of the Boeing. Ichikawa's fighter jet struck the airliner and sent both planes plunging into the mountains. Ichikawa was able to eject himself and parachute to safety, but everyone on board on Flight 58 was killed, and he was charged with involuntary manslaughter but was acquitted at his trial. This mid-air collision of a Boeing and a fighter jet in Japan that killed 162 people happened on today's date in 1971. Under coercion from the U.S. Supreme Court, President Richard Nixon releases subpoenaed White House recordings suspected to prove his guilt in the Watergate scandal, and that happened on today's date in 1974. The same day, the House Judiciary Committee voted a third article of impeachment against the president, contempt of Congress in hindering the impeachment process. The previous two impeachment articles voted against Nixon by the committee were obstruction of justice and the abuse of presidential powers. On the 30th of July 1976, American Caitlyn Jenner, who was competing as Bruce Jenner, wins gold in the men's decathlon at the Montreal Olympics. Jenner's 8,617 points set a world record in the event. The secret to Jenner's success was preparation. In the 70s, most decathletes trained with other decathletes, and Jenner trained with some of the world's best in each of the 10 decathlon events. It was Caitlyn Jenner who won the Olympic decathlon on the 30th of July in 1976. After the win, she enjoyed the unofficial title of world's greatest athlete and appeared in movies, television, and of course adorned a Wheaties box. Assigned male at birth, she publicly came out as trans woman in 2015. On the 30th of July 1999, it was the Blair Witch Project, a low-budget independent horror film that will become a massive cult hit, was released in the U.S. You're listening to the theme of the Blair Witch Project. Shot with shaky handheld cameras, the documentary-style movie told the story of three student filmmakers who disappeared into the woods and were never heard from again, although their footage was later discovered. With the help of a web-based viral marketing strategy, a relatively new concept at that time, the Blair Witch Project generated huge buzz over the question of whether or not it was based on a true story. In fact, the story was entirely fake. Fake or not, it didn't matter at the box office. The Blair Witch Project grossed some $250 million worldwide and featured on the covers of Newsweek and Time magazines. The Blair Witch Project followed the young filmmakers as they went into the woods in Maryland to make a documentary about a local legend known as Blair Witch. The filmmakers got lost and experienced a series of scary events and unexplained phenomena, such as strange noises and piles of stones being inexplicably rearranged. The trio never returned to civilization, but their film equipment was supposedly found, and the footage they shot became the Blair Witch Project. Unlike other horror films that featured bloody scenes and special effects, the Blair Witch Project scared moviegoers through implied terror and violence. And to make this seem more realistic and heighten the psychological tensions, there were things done to agitate the actors during production, such as shaking their tent and cutting back on their food supply. And the resulting grainy black and white footage became a Blair Witch trademark. On the 30th of July in 2003, the last of the Volkswagen Beetle was built since World War II rolled off the production line at Volkswagen's plant in Pueblo, Mexico. One of a 3,000-unit final edition, the baby blue vehicle was sent to a museum in Wolfsburg, Germany, where Volkswagen is headquartered. Happened on today's date in 2003, when the last of 21,529,464 Volkswagen Beetles that had been built since World War II, and the last one rolled off the production line on today's date. Those were some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, the 30th of July. And we have huge thanks going out for all this information to be brought to you on community radio networks. Big thanks to Discount Power, to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinzer Law, Mike Kolachi, Ruchi Palace by Mike Kolachi, Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Mystic Mandala, and Flash Brush Productions. Huge thanks going out to them for their support of community radio networks. Some events that are happening in town to keep you all busy. This weekend, the Indian Cultural Heritage Foundation is presenting a spectacular dance musical called Krishna, Fire to Frost. This is a dynamic dancing duo, Nirupama and Rajendra, and their troupe of 21 artists. Performing this Saturday at 5 o'clock at the Moody Performance Hall, and tickets are available at Ticket DFW. We have a spectacular dance musical on this enigmatic personality from the Mahabharata, Draupadi. It is being portrayed in Krishna, Fire to Frost, this Saturday. Also this Saturday, it starts the Life Transformation with Swami Mukundananda. It is from the 3rd to the 9th. There will be daily discourses on the power of thoughts through Patanjali Yoga Sutras at the Radha Krishna Temple in Allen. Every day from the 3rd to the 9th, start in the evening from 6 to 9 p.m. On the 8th of August, we have the 2024 North Texas Job Fair hosted by U.S. Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne in partnership with the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. This job fair is going to be at the Texas Rangers Stadium, and you can apply by sending your resume and cover letter to info@usicoc.org, or you can register at myntxjobs.com. 9th of August, we have Madhuri Dixit will be in town at the Malachite Room at the Intercontinental. You can get your, well, that hotel is now called the Renaissance, not the Intercontinental. And you can get more information and your tickets at 360shows.com. The Wishwin Spellathon have had their preliminaries, and now we have the semi-finalists of the juniors on the 9th and 10th, and then the seniors on the 11th and 12th of August. Wishwin.org.com for more information. Yade, and that's a program that's happening on the 10th of August at the Grand Center in Plano, reminiscing the songs of Kishore Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar, and Mohammad Rafi. And this magical night will be brought live on the stage with Shabbir Kumar, Prashant Naseri, Sanjeevni Bhelande, and Abhinand Sarkar. There is a holistic festival. It's a 2-day festival happening for Saturday and Sunday, 17th and 18th of August, both days from 11 to 5 at the Cotton Mill, McKinney. A 2-day festival of life and wellness brought to you by Mystic Mandala. And you can get more information at holisticfestivaloflife.com. And call Vijay for more information, 972-750-1419. On Sunday, the 18th, the Pakistan Society of North Texas is presenting the celebration of Pakistan's Independence Day. It's called Qaid Mela, and there will be a live performance by Farhan Sayed and Sabah Qamar. This is happening at the Frisco Flyers Event Center. Also on the 18th of August, there is a new exhibition starting at the Dallas Museum of Art. It's called Frida, Beyond the Myth. Coinciding with the 70th anniversary of Frida Kahlo's death, the Dallas Museum of Art is presenting Frida, Beyond the Myth, composed of over 60 works across media, paintings, drawings, prints, and photographs. And the exhibition will explore the life of one of the 20th century's most well-documented artists, one who continues to elude our understanding of her as an individual. So do visit the Dallas Museum of Art after the 18th of August. Please mark the 22nd of August for the Wellness and Workplace Conference by the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. It will be happening at the McKesson Corporate Headquarters from 9:30 to 2 on the 22nd of August. And 31st of August, India Association North Texas invites you all to the 47th Anand Bazaar, celebrating 77 years of India's independence. This is happening at the Frisco Rough Riders Stadium, a free event for the entire community with a music concert by Kanika Kapoor. And that concert is absolutely free for you too. You can book your booth, you can make arrangements to sponsor or any other information you need by going to the India Association's website, iant.org. Join the Brahma Kumaris of Dallas in welcoming Sister Shivani, a globally renowned spiritual teacher and motivational speaker. She guides us with ancient wisdom to bring hope and clarity in times of confusion and chaos. On Sunday, the 8th of September, from 2 to 4 in the afternoon at the Credit Union of Texas Event Center. And the second season of Mughal-e-Azam, the Broadway-style musical, is being brought to Dallas on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of September. We have Flash Brush Productions bringing you a huge bridal expo, a wedding expo on the 14th of September from 10 to 7. It's going to be at the Frisco Hall. And we have booths available, sponsorship opportunities available. And for that, you can call Priya at 972-963-0954. Do mark the 19th of September for Texas Giving Day this year, and do mark the 13th of October for Dallas Festival of Lights, the Grand Diwali Mela by Mystic Mandala, coming up for you on the 13th of October at the South Fork Ranch. And as we get closer to some of these dates, we'll have more information available for you. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my show for today, and I hope you found it very informative and that got you ready to take on the day today. For those of you who would like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.